All right. Well, yes, we have had a busy weekend. We want to say a special thanks to the Palmore family for donating some flowers. As you know, Paul Palmore passed away this week, and we had his service Friday. So we appreciate those flowers. They're beautiful flowers, and we're thankful for those. Thankful for the life that we got to celebrate with the family Friday. A beautiful service and a great ceremony. We're thankful for that. If you would, turn with me in your Bible to Exodus chapter 4. As I mentioned, we're not playing the music and the little video that goes along with the Chasing Carrots video. I said in the office before we all came out, we always have a little meeting to kind of make sure everybody's on the right page, the same page. And I said, Chasing Rabbits video. And they said, no, the video was not chasing rabbits. That's what you do when you preach. You chase rabbits. But anyway, we're going to take a break from that this week because several months ago we scheduled and planned this Dream Team Expo. And as already mentioned, we had a great time Wednesday night. And we are really moving on out and having greater and greater opportunities, more and more places that people can serve. And so we're going to take a moment today and just kind of share some things about that. But I wanted to share with you on a message today out of Exodus chapter 4. I'm going to start with verse 2 and read through verse 5. And to set this up, you know, this is about Moses. And this is when Moses had already been 40 years in Pharaoh's court, 40 years in the wilderness, and now he was turned aside and went up on the mountain to see why the mountain turned red. And so he was at the place we always call it, you know, the burning bush experience. So he's there and he's having this experience at the burning bush, and God had told him to take off your shoes from your feet because the ground you're standing on is holy ground. And then we pick up right here. So the Lord said to him, "What is that in your hand?" And he said, "It's a rod, a stick." He said, "Cast it on the ground." So he cast it on the ground. It became a serpent. And Moses did what most of us would do when a serpent is near. He fled. I don't know. Maybe that's why God said, "Take your shoes off," because he knew you wouldn't go very far barefooted. But I don't know how far he went, but I know that as he was running, as he was fleeing, God spoke to Moses again. The Lord said to Moses, "Reach out your hand and take it up by the tail." And he reached out his hand and caught it, and it became a rod in his hand. And he said, "That they may believe that the Lord God of their fathers, the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has appeared to you." Now, reenacting that scenario in my mind, I know of at least two things. One, yes, most people would run when you see a serpent. And another thing is, God said, pick up the serpent by the tail. How many of you know that's not where you pick up a serpent, if you do have to pick one up? You don't pick them up by the tail. Where do you pick them up? By the head, by the business end. You want that end to be secure and taken care of. Now, serpents never have been things that I'm all that afraid of. I have respect for those who have fangs. I know what they can do, and I have caught some of those who had fangs. I've caught some rattlesnakes. I've caught some cottonmouths. But just a little old play, everyday snakes. They're just little playthings to me. That don't scare me that much. Some people, a little snake that big can make you knock a hole in a wall that big, you know. And so, but I do know this, that when a serpent is on the ground, you don't pick it up by the tail. Even the chicken snakes that we call them, or the corn snakes, if you first pick them up by the head, because when they're nervous, they will turn around and latch on to you. And even though they can't do any permanent damage, it's kind of hard prying their mouth off your hand, you know, and so forth, because their teeth are slanted back. So you just don't pick a snake up by the tail. But I think what I see in this, now I don't know how it was meant to be, but what I see in this is God was saying to Moses, you pick up the other end, and I'll take care of the business end on this thing. You take care of your part, and I'll do my part. Now today, as always, we want to give you something that you can use, something that you can take home with you, something that will do you some good Monday through Friday or Saturday, even tonight through Saturday night. Pertinent information with some practical application for it. And there's two places in the Bible that really speak to me along these lines. And by the way, I don't know if I gave you the title or not, but the title now, it's just a stick, the title. It's just a stick. It's just a stick. In fact, I want to show you something. Now, I know Moses' rock probably wasn't like this, but this is just a stick. This is a stick, but it's an old stick. You can tell by looking at it, it's an old stick. But it's just a stick. But, sometimes I use this stick for fun. I used to, when I go walk in the woods, I'd carry me a rod or something because sometimes you do need to beat off a snake or something. But this little stick, back before I even got married, whoa, this stick was around when Moses was here, wasn't it? But this little stick I cut, and I even have my initials carved in it. But, it's really nothing special, but it has survived 7 different moves through 2 different states. It's been around a long time. And when I started thinking about this message, I thought, I need to find my stick. And so I said, well, it used to be hanging in the rafters in the garage. I went, that wasn't there. And I looked all through the other garage, and it wasn't in there. I looked under my bed. When I don't find something, I usually look under my bed because a lot of times that's where it is. It wasn't under there. And I was lying in bed, and I know I didn't really need it this morning, but it kind of gives me a little security because it's my stick, It's just a stick, but it is a stick, and it's been with me a long time. And I said, I was laying in bed, and I know you think this is silly, and I know you say, I know that didn't happen, it's just coincidence. But I woke up in the middle of the night, and I was thinking about it, and I said, man, I really wish I could find my stick. God, help me find my stick. And we've been studying on Wednesday night about different prophetic personalities, how we hear God, whether it's seeing or hearing or feeling or just knowing. Well, I just saw this stick in my cargo van that had things stored on, laying up on that shelf. Guess where it was this morning? It was right there where I saw it. And I went out there, and I came, and I thought, really, it got a whole lot worse since the last time I looked at it, but it's still just a stick, isn't it? Well, when God asked Moses, what's that in your hand? You know what he said? It's just a stick. It's just a rod. Wasn't anything special. It was just a rod. All shepherds had rods. And it seemed kind of strange that God would say to him, throw your rod down. But God has a reason for doing what he does. And so he said, throw your rod down. You know the rest of the story. We talked about it. So Moses was at the burning bush, and he had plenty of reasons not to do what God wanted him to do. Because what did God want him to do? He wanted him to go back to Egypt, where he just got exiled from 40 years before. And they remembered him there, and his name was Mud in Egypt. It might have been Moses in the desert, but it was Mud in Egypt. And so God said, I want you to go back, and you're going to deliver my people out of Egypt. Well, Moses had all the reasons we could come up with not to do it. First of all, he said, who am I? I'm just a shepherd. At one point, he was in line to be Pharaoh in Egypt. He was raised in the house of the most powerful man in the world at that time, Pharaoh. Egypt was a tremendously powerful nation. Egypt kind of ruled the world, so to speak. And he was raised in Pharaoh's house. And he was loved by Pharaoh, but when he chose to be identified with the Hebrews rather than the Egyptians, he separated himself from the people of Egypt, and he became a wanted man. So he knew he was really something special then, but now he's a nobody. In fact, he's a wanted man. It might have been a death warrant to go back to Egypt. He said, Pharaoh will kill me. Now, not the same Pharaoh that was there then, Pharaoh's son, who was jealous of Moses anyway, because Moses was at the brink of taking over for the Pharaoh of Egypt and boot the real son out. So there was not any love lost there. He said, I can't go back there, they'll kill me. And then he said, I can't speak before crowds. But there's another place in the Bible that says Moses was very eloquent of speech. So somewhere there's a contradiction. I wonder when he became non-eloquent. When he said, I stutter. I'm not eloquent of speech. It might have been when he threw that rod down and it became a serpent. He might have, but he might have got where he couldn't speak because of that. But regardless, he had a lot of excuses for not being able to do what God said to do. And then the last thing was, well, who would listen to me anyway? Who am I? Nobody's going to listen to me. So that's one instance that had an impact on my mind. Another one is in the New Testament, where Jesus was speaking to a big crowd of people. And in speaking to that crowd of people, it came late in the day, and the disciples said, Lord, I don't know if you thought about this or not. We always take stuff to God and say, God, I don't know if you thought about this or not. I don't know if you thought about this or not, but we got all these people here, and we don't have any food. And we can't send them home because it wasn't like they could go buy Jack in the Box on the way home. They had to really prepare to get meals. And he said, we can't send them home. What are we going to do? And so through a series of questions and answers and wrong answers and things, they came up and one guy said, well, but here, we got this little boy got 5 loaves and 2 fish. And Jesus said, okay, feed the people. Lord, do you not know we got over 5,000 men out there? And you know there's a bunch of women and children. There's probably like 15 to 20,000 people out there. And we got 5 loaves and 2 fish. Do you know that they won't even get a taste? If we just went by and every one of them smelled it, it'd be gone. They wouldn't get anything. And Jesus said, feed the people. And they started breaking out. And he said, basically what he said, what's in your hands? 5 loaves and 2 fish. Use them. That's not enough. We will never get to use it. He said, it will be enough if you will do what I tell you to do with it. So I love those 2 stories because they both represent to me what God is able to do when we will let go of what's in our hands and let him have what we're holding on to. Today I want to show you how God can take an ordinary man, an ordinary woman, an ordinary young person, doing ordinary things, and yet see extraordinary events in their lives. I'm going to show you 4 different things real quickly that will impact us, I believe, in this area. 1, never underestimate God's ability. Never underestimate God's ability. You see, the Bible says nothing is too hard for God. If nothing is too hard for God, then what's too hard for God? Nothing. I like the word nothing whenever we're talking like this because nothing is basically 2 words put together. It says no thing. No thing is too hard for God. No thing is too complicated for God. Never underestimate the ability of the Lord to meet a need. The children of Israel had been in bondage in Egypt for over 400 years under the most powerful man on the earth. God sent Moses to Pharaoh, and he got there to Pharaoh, and he said, God said, let my people go. And Pharaoh said, you got to be kidding me. Moses, you better get out here because we're going to hang you. And Moses said, threw the rod down. What happened to the rod? It became a serpent again. Just a plain old stick. You know what? It doesn't matter what kind of stick it is, because that stick in the hand of Moses was just a plain old stick. But when he gave it to God, it became the rod of God. And what it could not do as a stick, as the rod of God, it could do. And we look through the story in the Bible, and we see Moses taking that stick and stretching out across the river, and all the water turned to blood. We see Moses taking that plain old stick, holding it up at the Red Sea, and the sea parted. We see Moses taking that stick and striking that rock in the middle of the desert, and we see thousands upon thousands of people and their livestock being watered. It's just a stick, he said, God. And God said, you underestimate my ability. So he threw the stick down, and it became a serpent. Well, Pharaoh called for his magicians. Now, the difference in Moses and the magicians is Moses was a man of God. The magicians were tricksters, sleight of hand. And so I don't know how they knew, but they had a plan too. They had some, and they threw their little rods down, and they became serpents also. And Pharaoh said, show me something else, big boy. And all of a sudden, the rod of God that became the serpent of God began to eat the other snakes. Now, that didn't tell us exactly what kind of snakes were there, but knowing where the region is, I'm supposing they were probably what? Cobra, yeah. Cobra. But I don't think Moses' rod turned into a cobra. I think it turned into a king snake, because it represented the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, and king snakes eat other snakes. And so that chapter of the story ended as Moses' rod that became the snake ate the other snakes. In Moses' hand, it was just a stick. In God's hand, it became a mighty, powerful rod. Never underestimate God's ability. Secondly, never count yourself out. Now, I want this to be pertinent information for practical application for us. I want you to say now, this is for me. Okay, good. I just want you to know it's for you. This is for me. I'm saying it too. It's for me. I go back over this stuff a lot. So even though I preach it, do you know sometimes I have to go back over it? I preach it and I go back over it because I say, man, I need to be sure that I get all of it. So never underestimate the power of God to provide, but also never count yourself out. You may only be one, but when you're in the presence and the power and in the life of God, you're a majority. One's enough. Jesus said, I pray, Father, that they become one with me and with you as you and I are one. We're linked to Jesus Christ by a new birth. We're linked with him, so never count yourself out. A man said he saw on the news that there was poverty, and he was really concerned about all the poverty and all the sickness and in some other countries. And he was talking to his wife about, I just really feel a burden for those areas, those things. She said, well, why don't you just pray and talk to God about it? He said, because I'm afraid he'll ask me to do something about it. I think that's what a lot of people are. We say, I don't want to say anything because I'm afraid I'll have to be a part of the solution. And we feel inadequate to be a part of the solution, but remember, never count yourself out, because when God's on your side, you're a majority. Paul said it like this, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. God says to us, there is nothing that will ever confront you that in my power you cannot overcome. So today, if you're here and you've been battling something, you're thinking, I don't know if I'm good enough, I don't know if I'm smart enough, I don't know if I'm equipped enough, I don't know, and God's leading you to do something, don't count yourself out and don't count on yourself. Count on him. God never sends us into some place that he doesn't go before us and make a way. Now, it may look like a dead forest to you, but when he gets there, he turns it into a living forest. Never count yourself out. You can do so much more than you think you can do when you quit depending on yourself to do it. How many times have we said in our lives, in our ministry, God, we can't do this. It's impossible. You're going to have to do it. As that sung Great Revelation. Of course God's going to have to do it. And I can almost hear him snickering when I say that. He said, I've always planned to do it. I never intended for you to do it. I'm just looking for a stick. If I can just find a stick, any stick will work. Would you be my stick? It's not hard to be a plain old ordinary stick, is it? I mean, I might need to lose a little weight. I might be more of a log than a stick. But he says, all I need you to do is just be available. Just put yourself in my hand. And you'll be amazed at what can be accomplished and what can do. Never count yourself out. When the disciples were feeding the thousands, the fish and the loaves, where did the miracle happen? It happened right in their hands. Don't you imagine? I would love to have been there. I would love to have been walking along I'd love to have been one of the disciples, and I have one fish, and I hand it, and I look, and I got another one. Whoa, dude, how'd that happen? Give me another. Now I'm out. Whoa, no, I'm not out of fish. Here, have some bread. Well, I got more bread. I thought I was out of bread. Bring some more bread. Oh, it just keeps coming. I just keep handing it out. I don't know where it's coming from. The miracle is not yours, it's his, but it's happening in your hand as though you're doing it. Think about that. And people look at you and say, wow, you're a real miracle worker. That's what they said about Paul. Remember Paul and the other apostles? They said, you're miracle workers. I mean, Paul was shipwrecked, and they made it to shore and trying to build a fire. And as they were building the fire, a serpent came out and bit him on the arm. And they said, oh, man, the people said, oh, he must be a criminal. That's bad. He shook it off and didn't get sick or anything. They said, no, he's not a criminal. He's a God. You know, people look at when God used, they say, man, there's something. But we just remember we're nothing but sticks. We're just a stick, and a stick in the hand of God can do great and mighty things. If we just recognize that we're the stick and he's the God. We hold the insignificant end. He takes care of the business end. So never, ever count yourself out. And then, fourthly, never assume that what you have is insignificant. Nothing is insignificant when God touches it. It's just a stick. It's just a shepherd's rod. But when God touched it, it became more than just a rod. When Moses held it, it was a man's rod. It was his shepherd's staff. When God got hold of it, it was the rod of God. And great miracles were accomplished because Moses surrendered it to God. Never assume that what you have is too significant to matter. A man with a stick is all that was needed to defy the Pharaoh of Egypt, because the man with the stick had the power of God backing him up. God's not trying to take anything from you. Say, well, why did God ask Moses to throw a stick down? He wasn't trying to take something from him. Did you know God's trying to give something to us? But he can't give something to us if we're hanging on to the things that don't matter. If we're hanging on to things and we won't surrender what we have to him, as long as we hang on to it, it can only do what I can do. But when you give it to God, it can do what God can do. God's not trying to get something from you. He's trying to get something to you. What if that boy had kept his lunch? That's my lunch. My mom made that for me. I get the right to eat that lunch. I'm not going to share my lunch with others. What if he had done that? Would he have a right to do that? Obviously he would. It was his lunch. They didn't go knock him down and rip him off and take his lunch from him. Get that boy's lunch. Hurry, get him, hurry. He's not very big. Knock him down. At least we'll get to eat. He didn't do that. They said, this little boy says he's got this. He says, here, I've got this. If you can use this, Jesus, I'll give it to you. Think about it. That little boy had more spirituality than a lot of grown men and women do. He said, Lord, all I have is this, but if you can use it, I'll give it to you. Had he kept it for himself, he would have been fulfilled that day. Not any more than he was, because he already had all he wanted to eat. In fact, there were 12 basketfuls left over. Can you imagine they had more left over than they started out with? I guarantee you, he did not go home empty-handed and hungry that day. With 12 basketfuls left over, I'm sure he went ahead and took some home. Mom said, what'd you do with all that fish, boy? I only gave you 5 loaves and 2 fish. You come home with a basket full. What are you doing with all? Where'd you get that stuff? You wouldn't believe it, Lord, Mama, you wouldn't believe it. There was this man there, and we fed over 5,000 men and a bunch of women and kids. We had 12 of these left over. She said, boy, get to your room, quit lying. Where did you get that fish? You see, when the world looks at the supernatural, they don't understand it. But the little boy understood it. He was right there. He saw that miracle firsthand. I got a feeling we're missing a lot of miracles firsthand because we won't let go of the hand first. We won't let go. We won't give it to God. How can God do anything with something if we're not giving it to him? He's not going to come take it from you. What if Moses had held on to that rod? No, that's my rod, God. I'm not going to get it. You think God would have pried it out of his hand and thrown it down and said, see, I'm trying to show you something. I don't think he would have. I think there would have been somebody else. God was going to get his will done, but it wouldn't have been by Moses. And so we wouldn't be studying about Moses today, talking about what a great man of God he was. We would have said, well, you know, that guy, there was a guy named Moses, but yeah, he blew out. His fuse was short. His powder was wet. He never made it to the fireworks. Nothing wrong with Moses having a rod. What a good argument. There's nothing wrong with me having a rod. Every other shepherd has a rod. Casting down that rod was the first step of Moses becoming God's deliverer for his people. What did Moses do after his serpent ate all the rest of them? Picked it up, said, you going to let them go now? Walked out. He didn't stay there and argue. He didn't stay there and talk theology. He just picked it up and walked out. When he picked it up, what did it become? Simple stick. Just another stick. I wonder if that had been us, if we would have gone out and gone into the serpent-eating business. Look at this rod. We're going to charge you 50 cents to come see this rod turn into a snake. No, he picked it up and went on about the business that God had. He didn't let the business that God had used him greatly and mightily in a great show, he didn't let that go to his head and think, boy, I'm really something now. Whoa, I'm God's man with the plan. Got this rod of God in my hand, and I'm going to go really, I'm going to set the world free. No, he just went away and became just Moses again. You see, sometimes it's easier for God to use us once than it is for him to use us twice. Because the second time we think, we got this, you're lucky, I'm on your side, God, don't worry about it, I got it under control. And so we begin to kind of let it go to our heads. We kind of think, well, I'm something now. And so when we get to be something, we become nothing. When we realize we're nothing, we become something. But then when we realize, man, I'm really something, and then next thing you know, we quit attending church as regularly as we did because now I've got it. I'm something. I don't have to go because I don't need a job. I got that job finally. God answered my prayer, and now I can quit going to church and I can start going to the lake on Sundays. Yeah. Besides, I got that job, got all this money coming in now. I'm able to afford it, and you got to use these things, or it's a waste to buy them and not use them. So when do we use them? On Sunday. We're going camping. We're going to hang out. We used to go to church, but now we go camping because now we had a miracle from God, and now we take that miracle and we're polluting it with the world. Getting the miracle is not the issue, but staying usable in the hand of God is an issue. It's hard sometimes. One of the greatest hindrances to being used mightily by God is to be used mightily by God. Because then we start thinking, I'm not just a stick anymore. I am the stick now. And start wanting to put diamonds and pearls and encrust it with gold. And now I'm the stick. Don't you know who I am? Didn't you read my publicity? Well, I laid hands on somebody. They got healed. Don't you understand who I am now? I was a nobody. And I prayed and God answered my prayer. Now I'm the boss. I'm not getting bossed around. I got my own business now. I'm somebody. People look at me and say, whoa, they're a self-made man. And you think, yeah, but thank God I'm a self. And then all of a sudden you say, I'm not usable anymore. Because a simple stick has no mind or will of its own. And God says, I just need you to be a stick. Any stick will do, but you can't be a special stick. You got to be a simple stick. Are you busy being someone's special? Too busy to be somebody ordinary? Too good to serve with pleasure now because I'm too busy. I don't have time to volunteer. Too much takes my time. I can't be involved with the menial things. I'm involved in big things. You don't understand. I'm involved in things that affect hundreds of lives, and we're giving jobs to a lot of people. I'm so busy. I got to take care of my family. I don't have time to take care of the family of God. I don't have time to get involved because I'm too busy. I don't have time to volunteer. You volunteer? What do you mean volunteer? I get paid $50 an hour for everything I do and $100 on overtime. I don't have time to volunteer. Too busy for the small thing. What about, no, I can't serve on the first impressions team. I'm busy. I can't be a part of the parking lot team. Me, part of the parking lot team? Do you understand what I do? I speak and people go, and I go and people say, and I do all, and me be, that's not my calling. I'm above that. I can't serve on the green thumb team. I'm too busy serving on the red letter team. I'm so busy serving on the President's Council. I can't be a part of that. What, the hospitality team? How about investing your life in the lives of MCC kids? Huh? Put your life in something that would count. Many, many opportunities for people who say, I'm just a stick. Use me where you want to. Put me where you want me to go. Simply a natural little stick. The miracle of the extraordinary came from God, not from you. Remember who it is that makes the simple stick become the rod of God. It makes the simple become super and the ordinary become extraordinary. When it's all boiled down, yes, you're just a stick. The glory is not in the stick, it's in the holder of the stick. Jesus said it like this, I'm the vine, you're the branches. He who abides in me and I in him will bear much fruit. But of yourself and your own little stick, your own little branch out there, you can't do anything. He didn't say you can do a little. He said you can do nothing. No thing. Again. Unless we abide in him and draw our strength from him, then we can do something. But apart from him, we can do nothing. Yes, we need to remember this, lest we begin to think it's about us. You ready for a conclusion? Everybody say yes. Okay, here we go. Let's wrap this up. Now Jesus is asking us, speaking to us, what do you have in your hand? What do you have in your hand? Is it your business? Is it your family? Is it your hobbies? Things that in and of themselves aren't wrong. But when they take the place of God, become idols actually. Because we can't do something for what God wants to do because we're so busy holding our sticks, maintaining our own way. Yes, God uses simple, ordinary people doing ordinary things to get extraordinary results done. It's not about how great you are, but it's about how much you surrender. It's not about what you have, it's who you give it to. It's not about your position, it's not about your power, not about your personality. God gives us those things, but that's not what caused him to be able to work through us and make us great in the kingdom. It has nothing to do with your ability, but it has to do with your availability. Are you available? If God says, I need you to do a certain thing, can you say, oh, sure, God, I'll be glad to do that. I'll throw it down right now, and I'll be a part of what you're doing. Or you say, well, God, I can't. I'm too busy. I don't have time. Because you see, the blessings that you give me have taken over my time, so now the blessing become a curse. Because when the blessings take you away from God, they become your idol, and cursed are people who worship idols. Remember this, a little bit surrender to him becomes more than enough. Right now, today, if we surrender, what it is that we have in our hand, you too can have a miracle in your hand. Wait, I got another little illustration I want to give as we're concluding. Just a stick. Jesus, what do you have in your hand? I have a Roman spike. I have a Roman spike. God has used sticks all through the Bible. Elijah used a stick. Moses, on through. God took 2 sticks and put them together like this and made a cross so that his son could get on those sticks and die. You see, this stick is oddly shaped. When I found this stick, it was lying on the ground like this, and there was a big tree laying across it. And it had tried to grow out this way, but that had died and it sprung up here. So when I cut it, it was, this stick was wounded. It was marred by a fall. A tree fell on it. Not cut it. You and I were marred by a fall. But Jesus used 2 sticks to die on so that we could not be marred by the fall, that we could be redeemed into the kingdom. Isn't that awesome? Isn't that awesome? What if someone said, oh, that cross was just a stick? No, it wasn't just a stick. It was a stick on which the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords laid down his life so that you and I, who were poor and had nothing, become rich and have everything. And so when he says to me, Steve, what's that in your hand? It's just a stick. He says, throw it down. I say, okay. Okay. That's all we can say. That's all we can say. When he says, I want to do something in your life, just scat it down and say, okay. Why don't you bow with me with prayer?